of MPs refusing to be ejected out of Parliament. What did you think about that?
I think their constitutional right to refuse to be ejected from Parliament. Why? Number one, they were elected by the people who elected them. So it was a violation of the electorate's right to have their members or representatives in Parliament for the state to use armed, not armed per se, but uniformed police officers, which is ultra vires to the standing rules and orders of Parliament, that no uniformed members of the state can enter into Parliament. I think that was wrong on the part of the state. But I also think that it also comes to the question of the legitimacy crisis that the MDC has been talking about, that they don't recognize President Emmerson Mnangagwa. So their protest, in a way, was in one way to show that they don't recognize him by not standing up when the president walked into Parliament. Number two, by maintaining a consistent message as to prior when the ninth Parliament was sworn into office. So I think it's a message around contesting the legitimacy of Emmerson Mnangagwa.
Okay. Do you feel the same way?
No. First of all, there's only one president. The president is Comrade Didi Mnangagwa. And I feel that if they are to take a stance where they don't recognize the president, then they shouldn't be in Parliament. Because we pay them for being there. They're supposed to represent our, our beliefs and, our constituencies. So if they don't have the time to do that and only want to stick to one point, they should get out. I think the fact that the police came through to eject them was the fact that the head of state was sitting there. Security. Well, actually, the presidium was sitting there. And there's no way that we're going to actually sit around and say, Idi has to run away. I'm sure you saw that. They tried to sort of shield him from what was going on, because what if it was an attempt on his life?
But Parliament is immune.
So Parliament standing orders requires everyone to stand up when the head of state comes into Parliament.
No.
It does.
Which law are you quoting?
No, I'm telling you, because even in junior parliament practice, you practice what the senior parliament does.
No, but
you stand up when the head of state walks in, even if it's like different arms of state.
Okay.
What do you say, ma'am?
Yeah, the incident yesterday was uncalled for, but we are looking at both sides now to say these parliamentarians, we are looking right now, the buzzword is safe spaces. Now, if we have that kind of violence in Parliament, or that shuffling, shelving, it will translate into, it will go into the public domain. So we really need order, and using force is uncalled for. And at another level, or using another lens, where we are promoting non-violence. So to them, maybe the parliamentarians, the MDC parliamentarians, maybe it's their own way of expressing a non-violent act so that they are not caught off guard. Wrong as it may sound, because we follow protocol, we follow procedures, but someone else is trying to express himself, because we have got a divided nation based on what came out on the from the 30th of July elections.
Exactly. So building up on that, Twande, wouldn't you then say that because our constitution says freedom of expression and freedom of beliefs, they were justified in then saying, no, we're not going to stand up when the president walks in, because basically our constitution says I can, believe in what I want, I can express my beliefs and how I want. Isn't that then meaning that they could just basically sit and say, no, we're not going to stand up?
Well, I also, sort of to tell on what you're saying was that we have rules.
Mm-hmm.
And when you come into Parliament, you must observe these rules. If you didn't want to observe these rules and want to stand outside the rules, you're free to do so.
Mm-hmm.
But don't come in there and then want to dictate your own feelings and your political position in Parliament when it's not allowed, or when you don't want to observe the agreed upon protocols that regulate conversation. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense. It's like an example: you come to my house and I'm the head of the house, then you start eating first. It doesn't work. I mean,
You're
that
such a
protocol,
patriot.
it doesn't work. I'm saying if that's the rule of the whole.
Yeah,
You know.
okay.
Okay.
Well, you know what? I'll just give it to say, also in defense of the MDC, because of we already know as a nation, like Mom said, that we're a divided nation. We already know that the MDC will always come into Parliament and be a tantrum baby.
Yeah.
I'll call them that. They'll be a tantrum baby. The judgment by the Speaker of the House, if really it was about making sure that we go with the order of the business, ejecting them out of Parliament was uncalled for. He could have made a wiser decision.
So what would you then say would have been the best
I would have
way?
ignored them. I would have ignored them
And
because
let's-
I don't think the president is worried about members of parliament not standing up if he knows that at least 49% of the nation didn't vote for him.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Already it's something that should make him insecure if he's an insecure man, which I believe he is not.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So seeing 70 to 80 individuals in a room not standing up should not bother him at all. He should just sit down and go on with the order of the day, because in part of being an austerious people,
Yeah.
the fact that they're sitting and they're going to be paid for their sitting, can we get on with the business of a day? Money is time. Time is money. I guess, I mean, it was a scandal in Parliament. I wanted us to start off there so that we can all relax and get us to talk about what happened, the funny things, the bits that make the jokes. But the budget came out. Our new finance minister, the first time a non-politician gets to give out a budget statement.
Yeah.
How do you feel about the budget, Ngobizita?
Well, I think the first thing is the budget was given, but I'll focus on the title of the budget itself. I think austerity for prosperity. I think we need to analyze the title itself before we go into the contents of the budget.
Might as well dive into it.
Go
Yes.
first.
So what does austerity for prosperity mean?
Yeah.
What does austerity itself mean, and what does prosperity mean? So I think the word austerity for all Zimbabweans, it now reminds us of the 1990s when we had the economic structural adjustment program that was imposed upon the government then of Robert Mugabe and enforced by Bernard Chidzero, who was Minister of Finance, to privatize, to liberalize it, to stabilize the Zimbabwean economy. But I think we all know that the opposite happened. There was no stabilization, there was no privatization. There was privatization, which did not lead to job creation and economic growth. So I think this is another version of ISAP too. So what austerity means is that they are saying we want to cut government expenditure. But it's not about cutting government expenditure, but it's about reprioritizing the priorities of government. So you can't cut government expenditure towards healthcare, you can't cut government expenditure towards education, can cut government expenditure towards social service delivery, like treating water plants, refurbishing our infrastructure, roads, etc. And in that way you create jobs. So I think we've missed an opportunity, and it's fun and ironic that ZANU-PF, which for all Zimbabweans know was a revolutionary Marxist party that fought for the liberation of this country to bring what they called Gutsa Ruzhinzi, which are the values of a socialist state, is now quoting Margaret Thatcher and ZANU-PF MPs, legislators, ululated whistle in Parliament, celebrating Margaret Thatcher. But we all know what Margaret Thatcher's policies did, not only to the UK, but to Greece, to Spain, and to the rest of the global. So I think Zimbabweans, we need to be careful with the wording that Professor Mthuli Ncube is using in his economic lexicon. Let's be careful. Let's not celebrate poetic titles to a budget. Austerity means that government is now prioritizing global capital at the expense of equally contributing or equally initiating policies or programs that focus on domestic resource mobilization. So I think the budget should have spoken issues around how we're going to support our SMEs more, how we're going to support or initiate policies that drive domestic resource mobilization, because this economy is not going to be built by foreigners, by Chinese capital, by the Goldman Sachs of this world, by the IMF or the World Bank. This economy is going to be built by entrepreneurs and young Zimbabweans.
I'm excited about what you're talking about, because let's look at the budget in itself, where it matters, like primary and secondary education. The budget is appropriate.
Yeah.
The budget
Yeah.
is more than what former Minister Chinamasa presented last year.
It
Yeah.
is, but
Right?
if-
So where they are cutting and where they are reshuffling, I feel like they're giving more to places where we can, like the austerity that you're talking about. Truthfully, why the structural item happened back then with Robert Mugabe was because you could never work that system with somebody who fundamentally was a socialist,
Was a
and it
socialist,
was Robert Mugabe. So even if ZANU-PF in itself, and it had values about kugutsa vanhu, today any economy that functions better in a capitalist state.
No,
The only people that don't function in capitalist, allow. The only people that don't function in a capitalist state and are successful are people with oil. Dubai.
Like, let's look at Singapore under Lee Kuan Yew, Norma. I think we know how the Singaporean model, or the Asian Tiger model, transformed the East Asia as a region economically, right?
They started off going
Can I speak? You see, they had what they called state-centered development. State-centered development, in a way, has socialist features or characteristics. Number one, the state plays an evident role in the management of the economy. Number two, the people indigenously drive economic policies that should transform the material conditions of a particular jurisdiction or country. So under Lee Kuan Yew in Singapore, you had meritocracy, pragmatism, and honesty as the three guiding philosophical foundations of how to build the Singaporean economy. And today Singapore is a wonder, is a star. Look at Rwanda. Probably Singapore is too far. Let's look at Rwanda. Paul Kagame's Rwanda today. Do you know that all state enterprises in Rwanda are the ones that competed at the Rwanda's stock exchange, and they're the ones that are employing people, that are creating services, financial services and other services in the country, state-led enterprises. But Mthuli Ncube is saying we're going to privatize state-owned enterprises. And what does privatization say? When we're going to look at the implications of privatization, it means jobs are going to be lost. For example, if they say they are going to privatize ZESA, it means tariffs for electricity are going to go high.
Is it a given?
And we are.
Is it a given?
Those are the results of
Let's ask Mam Rita, because she seems to be agreeing with what you're saying.
Those are the results of austerity measures. We are taking it back to 1992, where we really suffered.
I was only being born.
Yes, you weren't born by then. I was working. 1992, it wasn't for the poor. It's not a pro-poor budget that we are looking at today. Just like in 1992, we were told to tighten up our belts, and we were told we are going to do slash the civil service, and the civil service had a negative impact on women because they used the last in, first out, and most women were employed in 1980, 82, after independence, where we have women, because before independence, women, if you fall pregnant and with you and your baby, you would have to reapply for that job. There was no maternity leave.
Okay.
So you see, these are the austerity measures. We are saying we can't have that. We had that in 1992, and it did not work. What were the results? In 1997, we have food riots. In 1998, we also have food riots being led by women, not by men, being led by women. So this, it has got nothing to do with the poor. And we look at our population, it's 52% women. And men, they are the ones who have got all the monies in their fingertips. And what are we saying? Is it a pro-poor budget? Is it a gender-responsive budget that we are talking about? To me, it's not.
Okay, what is it that would reflect in the budget as a pro-poor budget?
Yes, that's a very important.
And
what is it? But then before we go there, I feel like you need to contribute a little to what's being proffered here.
No, I mean, I was listening to everything. I think one thing, just to sort of add on or to sort of discuss, I like the example of Singapore, but let's not forget the many atrocities that came with Singapore when ruling. People were killed because of stealing. By Lee. People were killed because of
stealing.
People are still killed in China for stealing today.
Yes.
And in Zimbabwe, people are not killed for stealing.
You go to jail,
okay.
or you're not caught.
I know that our president is against the death penalty, but I'm saying in these countries it is public knowledge that you will be killed.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Now, I also want to express that to add on to what you're saying. Singapore did not allow to receive foreign aid in any way. As you said, it was something that they developed as a unique
Indigenous.
country to lead themselves out of it. Now, that just simply means that they took good economics or good political economics, because I mean, in every element of the economy there's politics.
Yes.
So they decided to simply work on a people-centered kind of economy, and then it worked for them. Now, when I then look at our budget, I think earlier on, when we were, having our our little discussion, I felt that for me the elephant in the room was not discussed. When I say the elephant in the room, I'm talking about the currency reforms.
We'll take you there.
Okay.
Before you dive into it,
Yeah.
we'll take you there. I just want us to wrap up what would we call a pro-poor budget before we go right deep into what the budget highlights were. What do we call a pro-poor budget? What is it that the minister didn't address in the budget that reflected that it wasn't pro-poor? I mean, we can say austerity. I wouldn't agree mostly with what you're saying, but I want you to express fully, so maybe I might just shift my point of view.
Yeah.
When we speak pro-poor, we are looking at social service delivery. We are looking at health, especially health. A healthy nation is a prosperous nation. Even this prosperity that we are talking about, if everything is there in our health services, there's no problem. Right now, you go to our health service centers, you are given a prescription, you are paying your medical aid, both private and public medical aid. You go, you are given a prescription, you
have a
walk
shortfall.
into, it has a shortfall one, you are given a prescription, you walk into any pharmacy in Zimbabwe, they want
Cash.
US dollars.
they want cash.
Yeah. But then, Mam Rita, are we not then? I think as Zimbabweans, we've been very quick to jump to conclusions. I mean, there are things in the budget where we can commend our professor and say, social services, there's been a slight increase. Health, there's been a slight increase in the
Military has been cut
military has
down.
been decreased. Education
don't
has
have
been increased.
crisis.
So are those not things that we can commend and say, hey?
And how much is our education?
It's
how
at
much is
No, they gave $1
$1.13
billion.
Yeah, they gave us a
But now,
billion.
I think
Yes.
the conversation is, all right, $1 billion. How much of that money? Because people don't dig deeper; they just look at the figure.
Yeah.
How much?
But 60% or between 50 to 60%
Yeah.
of that money will be going to administrative costs.
Yes.
So that's the challenge. So they gave $694 billion, if I'm not mistaken, to health. But of the majority of that money is going to administrative costs. Coming to your point of a proper budget, because I think the conversation what should be an alternative budget to what Mthuli Ncube is presenting, which is a global capital budget. I want to speak about a people-centered budget, that which reflects the Kutsa regime.
Before we go to a people-centered budget, right? How do we make sure that our people play a critical role in a
the
people-centered
budget,
budget?
yeah.
Why I'm saying this is because our current situation and how it is, every day, every single one of us is perpetuating the nonsense that makes this economy not function. Firstly, we have foreign currency in the black
Burning
market.
money, yeah.
And all of us in here,
Who
one
is
way or the
that
other, hold on,
easy?
hold on.
Point.
We
Yes.
are all doing it. At one way or another,
Yes.
if I do get foreign currency, because firstly, I'm not productive in foreign currency, right? Even if they opened up a factory job to any Zimbabwean youth today, and they told you, we'll pay you $400 to go to the factory, we'll make sure that you have medical aid for you and your children and whatever, we'll pay your pension. I will look at them and tell them, I'm also serious, in any street in donate $400 a day. You
Okay.
cannot tell me about
Yeah,
making $400.
precisely.
So which means our youth is not willing to cooperate in making the economy work. And the best of the economies function because those people work menial jobs despite whatever alternative methods they would do. Now that we have discussed this, depending on whoever is in charge, say our president
Yeah.
decides to have a GNU suddenly to unify the nation, I don't see how the people's mindset is going to be shifted. Hence, these austerity measures actually address the kind of people that we are.
Yeah.
Norma. A state functions on one thing.
Don't go book.
No,
Answer saying
I want
from
to
go
answer
visitor
this.
will walk
Yes.
into a job.
As a youth in
ask
Zimbabwe.
I want to
yourself
answer
as a
this.
youth.
I want to
Don't
answer
ask. I
this.
know you are going to go politics hard.
Society functions on trust. The
Okay.
biggest deficit in Zimbabwe
is trust.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
We
So whether Goldman Sachs, for example, pours in $1 million into the revitalization of Cisco Steel, and they want to create 3,000 jobs, for example, the issue is their confidence from the people themselves. I want to answer your question around if they open a factory today, will young people who are in the streets selling money, if you want to call it that, or in the black market, will they live? But what are the fundamental structural problems that led them into the streets? What really happened to the issue of trust? Remember, I banked my US dollars in 2013 in US dollars. I would withdraw them in US dollars during the GNU period. But after the GNU period, they introduced this funny thing called the bond note.
bond note,
They said
yes.
it's legal according to the Finance Act, it's 1:1. Number one, we have already killed trust between the government, number one, or the RBZ as an institution of the state, and the banking public. Now what happened? People were no longer putting their money into the banks. And don't ask me where they were getting the money. A lot of Zimbabweans, I think 60% or 45% of Zimbabweans are in the diaspora. So people receive
Remittance.
money through remittances. They are not illegally
Perfect.
trading money. So that's the issue we need to address in the state, in this country. We need to sit down and begin to negotiate or renegotiate the social contract. So it comes back to what Marita was saying around the July 3rd issue. Let's solve the ghost. You were talking about an elephant in the room. I see a ghost. Which is in
So let's address his
the
elephant.
ghost-
Yes.
is the
Let's
ghost-
address his
is the
elephant.
ghost of
Yeah.
it.
It's in
No,
the
it's
ghost
the ghost
becomes
of
the
descended
ghost
electoral
becomes
outcome.
No, he should address his
You-
elephant.
No,
let's
you-
let's address
yes.
something that we all see.
Alright,
The
alright.
ghost,
Yeah.
the ghost may be
So
a
the
problem
issue
for all
now-
of us.
So the issue tormenting this country, disputed elections, you know, mind. Oh, all of you guys.
We have with this. We
effect.
all agreed on this platform. We
The
all
effect.
agreed that because of how divided the nation is,
So-
everything is
so
always going to be
the question
problematic.
is around how we-
Let's address the elephant.
I don't agree with that point.
Chakatanga ndo chakachenjedza.
Yes, yes.
Because in 2008
Yes.
everybody lost
They robbed us.
all our earnings. They were
We're likely to lose them again.
yes,
If you're
and
not
people are afraid that we are likely to lose them. This is why you find these fissures, this resistance. Even if Mthuli is going to say something that is good out of this world, nobody is going to take him seriously
Yeah.
because we know what happened
Abana
in
social-
2008.
But then that's why I don't agree
There's
with
no
you.
social contract.
His trust issue. If he, let's just say yesterday, he actually commented on the currency reform and took the advice maybe of Hanky, the professor, or the other Hawkins. He takes it and he says, okay, we are now doing this. And then he puts back, because remember, like, the currency reform is, like you rightfully said, it's a trust issue. You know, if I go and put my US, if I go put my euros, or whatever, I should be able to take it out.
Yes.
Are you telling me that if he fixed this yesterday, today we would be really debating an issue about it?
Again,
I don't think so.
I will
because-
say this.
and I'll go and prove it. I'll go and take.
We as a
oh,
people have a level of lawlessness. Even if Professor Mthuli said that, today we're going to wake up and the rate has skyrocketed to 800%.
Yeah.
The only reason being what he's talking about, the social contract. That which you say you're going to do. I understand the trust part. The only thing that I'll never agree with Ngobizita, and maybe I'm using some privileges of him being a comrade of the struggle back in university, is that I wouldn't trust Nelson Chamisa either. So leave me with the trust,
Yeah.
right? I would say neither of
Which
them
is a
makes
democratic
sense.
right.
No, you know what I mean? Neither of them would provide me that trust level. So what do we do? Because none of the leadership that's there, to most of us, would give us anyway that trust. How do we work with people, right? Which is what you're saying. So our people currently cannot trust anything that the government says, and neither can we trust the people to do what is right. No
but
one
then-
wants to
but
work
then
with the
if
other.
If you've noticed, right, Zimbabweans, we are very I can't say fickle. Fickle is the wrong word. We trust things that we see and believe. As in, if you told me right now there's fuel by 2nd Street,
You go.
no. Show me a
I
video.
want to see.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. But that's why I'm saying, even if Mthuli yesterday decided to address currency reforms, like I'm saying, I'm really talking about currency reforms. To me,
Yes,
that's a trust
it-
issue.
yeah.
Yeah.
If
It would
you
have
really
made his
addressed
budget
it.
make sense.
If
Yes.
I went to the bank and I told you that I've just taken out $1,000 right now
And showed
in
them.
that Stanbic Paboradil,
Yeah.
and you go there,
And I
you're
don't.
like, hey, bruh, there's US by Stanbic.
Stanbic, yeah.
You go to cabs, there's US by cabs. You go to EcoBank, this is by cabs. Zimbabwe has changed. Do you know that overnight?
Yes.
It doesn't take
Yeah.
even 100%.
I
Takes one day.
I
One day
really
of trust.
agree with you. You know why? There is a gap there. Some 5-6 years ago, we used to have the tripartite negotiating
Yes.
forum, where labor, business, and employers would come together and discuss issues that are affecting them as business, as government, as trade unions.
Has that
You
stopped?
see, it has
The
stopped.
bill has not passed through parliament.
The bill has not passed.
How does the bill, again, I'm going to take it back to the scandal.
Yes.
How does the bill pass through parliament when we have people willing to be walking out of
No, but
parliament,
Zambia can pass any bill.
sitting and
Yes.
wanting to be
Zambia is
picked
very
up?
lawlessness
There's
in
lawlessness in
the
the parliament.
No, but Zambia
How
is
does
very
our
lawless.
choosing?
They
People
choose
don't
which
empty.
bills benefit them.
Yes. Which
So why do we
comes-
vote these
We are
people?
dealing with a system.
Yeah.
We are not dealing with anything else. We can
It's a
discuss
system.
the whole
Yes.
day. But it's the system.
Yes.
What kind of system do we have in
Yes.
place? We can speak whatever, using whatever language, using whatever is in the book, and so many examples. But we have got a system.
Yeah.
And a system that is there to suck. Who is the owner of the US dollars that are in the
Banks.
that is in the streets,
Not in the banks.
not in the banks?
In the streets.
Remember in 1999, 2000, when we wanted to
Still
pay
babies.
the IMF, when we wanted to pay the IMF bill, when did Gono come into office?
Yes, that was the time.
Yeah.
That was the time.
2003, yeah.
2003, 2004, we wanted to pay the IMF bill so that we would go and borrow.
Yes.
He put money in the market
Yes.
to buy US dollars. And the US dollars were bought, I think $108,000 was bought and
Given to
pay,
the IMF.
given to the IMF. And we didn't get anything as a country. We couldn't borrow because we had
We
not
can't
paid
borrow.
enough.
No.
We can't,
I
But
know.
let-
we
What-
can't
what
borrow.
happened?
Let me tell you about borrowing. We shouldn't celebrate borrowing when
Yeah.
we've got diamonds, we've got mineral, more than 46 minerals in Zimbabwe. And we want to celebrate borrowing. Why should we borrow? We've got all these resources and we couldn't be crying about employment of young people.
I think I want us to go back to the
Yes.
budget.
Yes.
There's a lot about the social contract that we need to talk about as a nation, and it's not about the social contract with the government.
Yes.
It's with each other as
Yes.
citizens,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Because I don't trust
Citizen-
you, I don't
citizen
trust you.
solidarity, yeah,
Nobody trusts anyone. So
Yeah.
I guess this is another conversation on the
Yeah.
feedback. But let's deal with the budget critically.
Yeah.
And I want us to be harsh on the type of citizen that I have described, and I'm not sure if you agree with me, that we have a level of lawlessness and irresponsibility as a people.
Yes.
If somebody had to execute this budget on us, does it change the way we become lawful?